In the season after the Feast of the Epiphany, we really think about Jesus' earthly ministry and have lots of readings about his life here on earth. And last week we started with his first calling of some of the apostles. And this week we'll continue that theme where he calls the brothers, Simon, Peter, and his brother Andrew. And that really forms a lot of what we will be talking about this week in our liturgy. And the opening voluntary, the organ prelude that starts the service, you'll notice that it was written by Robert Powell, who lives just 3 hours away on the other side of the mountains in Greenville, South Carolina. He was the director of music at Christ Episcopal Church there in Greenville for about 35 years and still continues to compose music as a very prolific composer. And in addition to organ music, like you'll hear at the prelude, you'll also recognize his name from the communion service that we sing each week. And speaking of the communion service, the more astute or attentive of you may have realized that we're using some different words at the Eucharistic, the canon, as we call it, of the Mass. And those words are taken from a supplemental liturgy book called Enriching Our Worship. This is a resource that's been around now for a couple of decades, actually. And it is something that's endorsed by the Episcopal Church from the Standing Commission on Liturgy and Music as a resource to give us some fresh theological ideas as well as linguistic ways to express our faith in the Eucharistic prayer. You'll notice that it is much more concise. The Eucharistic prayer is much shorter than what we are accustomed to, and yet it has, if anything, more meaning, more theology to unpack than what we are accustomed to that we use through most of the year. So it's almost like haiku, where every word is of primal importance. So I really draw your attention to the words of the Eucharistic prayer that we'll be using during this season. At the sequence, the hymn that comes between the reading and the gospel, again, thinking about Jesus' call to the apostles, we'll be singing this beautiful hymn that comes from the Iona community, Will You Come and Follow Me? This is a tune that is associated for most Christians with the sort of Celtic folk fiddle tune that comes from the Iona community. And it has that nice buoyant feel, and you can sort of imagine the Iona community way up in the north of Scotland and in the Hebrides and the waves crashing around. And it's really kind of a fun, playful tune for what can be a fun and playful text. But if you really dig deeper into this Iona community text, it has a lot of introspection to it. And so the Reverend Dr. John Hooker, who is both an Episcopal priest and has been a parish musician, wrote a much different tune. And this is the one that here at St. John's we are familiar with. Much gentler, and it gives you a lot more time to sort of live with the words and to think about what they mean as we consider our following of Christ's call. At the offertory, the choir will be singing Come My Way, My Truth, My Life, as sort of a response, again, to Christ's call for us. These are words from George Herbert, or Georg Herbert, as he probably said his name. Very familiar, a very familiar poem. We're also very familiar with Ralph Vaughan Williams' setting of this text. But this is a setting by the New York-based composer Harold Friedel. And a very, again, like that sequence hymn, it's a slightly different take, musical take, on those same very familiar words. So very long phrases that really draw out the poetry of that text. And the text is marked by all these kind of a laundry list of qualities. Come my way, my truth, my life, such a truth that ends all strife, such a life that killeth death. And yet Friedel has these long phrases that help connect all of that together. So we hope that you'll come and join with us as we follow Christ's call and as we come together to worship. and joining us either here downtown or on YouTube channel or on cable here locally.